Derman testified on a range of challenges experienced by disabled persons, saying these caused them to be more anxious than able-bodied people. He says a disabled person is more likely to respond with a fight-and-flight response by facing the danger head-on, and believes this is what happened the night Oscar Pistorius shot and killed River Steenkamp. Derman also told the court a disabled person facing a threat in the darkness will become more fearful and anxious, and says Pistorius' reaction that night was a result of this. But the state has questioned why he would testify in court on behalf of Pistorius if he's the athlete's doctor, even implying that he could have disregarded the code of ethics guarding health professionals. It has called his testimony into question, saying he was more of a character witness than an expert witness. And now for a wrap of today's proceeding, let's cross live to the North Gauteng High Court, where our reporter Patricia Visagie is standing by with the latest. Patricia, a very good afternoon to you. Another grueling day in the North Gauteng High Court today. The state calling to question Wayne Derman's testimony. Take us through the court proceedings today.
Yes, of course, Professor Derman sounding very confident about his testimony when his evidence was led by the defense advocate, Kenny Oldwage. But of course, the tune of music changed as soon as he met the state prosecutor, Advocate Harry Nell, under cross-examination, who started off the cross-examination by questioning exactly what the brief was to Derman and whether he's speaking as an expert or whether he's giving character evidence. And of course, that did not go so well. It seemed as if his credibility immediately came under question when the state prosecutor took him on the stand. And it went on with Advocate Harry Nell asking clarity on exactly, what the Paralympians' flight and fight response might have been on the morning of Valentine's Day when he shot and killed River Steenkamp. Advocate Nell basically telling the court that it seems as if the Paralympian had time to think before he pulled the trigger on the morning of Valentine's Day. But of course, to take us through more detail of today's court proceedings, I am joined by legal expert, and that is Dr. Llewellyn Kaluas, who's right here next to me. Now, what do you make of Derman's testimony?
Well, obviously, as you indicated, the tune changed the moment cross-examination took place or started off. I am concerned about the credibility of Mr. Derman or Professor Derman at this stage. At some stage, he was actually warned by the court because he started getting agitated with Harry Nell, and that's not good for credibility. And the moment you lost your temper or you're getting angry or frustrated, that's the time when your credibility is at stake. And I think that is precisely and exactly what Harry Nell is after. Once again, we have the same situation here which we had with Dixon, the witness that was called earlier at some stage. We've got a situation here where a person testifies about a whole lot of aspects, and obviously you can never be an expert in all these things. And that's what Harry Nell wants to elicit here. He wants to find out precisely what was your brief. If you were an expert on one aspect, then clarify that to us. What was your brief? Or are you purely here to come and support the character evidence of the accused?
Of course, he also telling the court once again that people with disabilities have a heightened flight and fight response, and that again being focused on extensively. Why is it so important for the defense to focus on that?
Remember, ultimately the defense placed up front was one of putative self-defense, indicating that the defense must come and prove to the court that Oscar Pistorius acted within the scope and limitations of that specific defense, and one of which is it must be an imminent danger. And that is precisely what Harry Nell wants to elicit here, to find out whether Oscar Pistorius had time and how much time did he have before he had to decide whether to pull the trigger or not.
And of course, Derman admitted that the Paralympian had time to think before he pulled the trigger.
Exactly, and that might be a problem for the defense, because it suggests that he could have used other methods other than to shoot 4 times. And that is a transgression of the limitations clause that is supportive of that offence, and which event you cannot rely in the South African criminal procedure on putative self-defence as an ultimate offence.
Of course, the state also has to prove intent and also that his life was not in imminent danger.
Yeah, sure. Remember, to secure a conviction on the murder charge, that is one of the main elements of the crime, besides the act of unlawfulness, obviously. Dolus eventualis is probably applicable here in terms of our law, meaning that could you foresee the possibility, and what time, and how could you respond to that opportunity, obviously.
But his credibility, of course, could not support the defence's case.
Yeah, for sure. Remember, credibility is one of the aspects a court must look at. Your demeanour in court is so important because ultimately a court must make a decision whether your evidence is reliable or not. And one can only establish that, besides looking at the facts, to your demeanour. How do you address the court? How do you answer to questions? Is it upfront? Is it objective or not? Is it purely there to assist the accused or not? And that are the kind of things that the court will be concentrating on.
Comparing his testimony to that of Dixon, the defence's previous witness, would one say that he just knocked the defence's case?
No, I wouldn't say that. That is going too far. Obviously, he was initially a very good witness in my mind. However, well, obviously, and that is because the cross-examination started off, he tended to turn around a bit. And remember, the last remark that we've made and talked about just now supports the state's version that there was time, at least, for Oscar Pistorius to decide what he wants to do. And he decided to pull the trigger. And that might be a concern for Barry Roo at this stage. And I would seriously suggest that they consider addressing that issue at some stage, even during argument, to explain it.
All right, and that, of course, was legal expert here at the North Gauteng High Court, giving us today a wrap-up of today's court proceedings here at the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. And that was Dr. Llewellyn Lewis.
Thanks so much to SABC reporter Patricia Versace with legal expert Dr. Llewellyn Lewis giving us today's summary of the court proceedings at the North Gauteng High Court.